mass-produced goods and choose and fit our size to them. For designers, as I already mentioned earlier, a lot of work is still manual. There's a lot of back and forth for designers to convert what they make by hand into something that's manufacturable. This is a very typical time stamp for producing a new style using a manufacturer. It can take months and months and months doing the development, and finally you're producing them. That could be more than half a year. And all these steps are very expensive. The development and the production stages are all very expensive per style. I at first thought that was just my personal experience coming from the tech industry, looking into fashion as an outsider. That was maybe I didn't have the right connections or I didn't find the right manufacturers, but turned out that that's actually really common. Even the biggest brands, they have this schedule, this long time period and cost to develop any new design. And every season they're trying to push something new. So there's a lot of pressure from the manufacturing side that a lot of the brands, they need manufacturers and cheaper labor. They will go to developing countries. People don't work in very good conditions. And these factories, they demand high volume. Because for them, that's efficiency, volume is profit. So they would ask the designers to make like tons and tons of repeated units that's mass produced. So what happens then is inventory and goods that's not sold. We see those sales even every day we see sales that the shops and retailers and brands are putting on because they have all these mass-produced goods. They don't know how much will be sold. They produce them anyway, and they will accumulate. Turns out that the fashion industry contributes to 10% of carbon footprint. The overproduction is severe. And the way a lot of the materials are made are not environmental friendly either. The number is shocking. 30% of clothes ever made are never sold. So these accumulated goods are sent to landfill eventually. After the discounts, they still cannot sell them. They will be destroyed. The brands, they will spend tens of billions of dollars to produce new designs, but then accumulates so much that they have to send them out and burn them. So this is what's happening to the current industry, where brands are predicting how much they can sell, but they always overproduce. They will have to come up with artificial trends to say, this year, this color is trendy, you have to buy it, otherwise you're not fashionable. But using that kind of marketing can only go so far. We've seen all these markdowns, then destroy, and then pollution. The ultimate goal really is to make made to order. We shouldn't be making anything until someone already wants it. And that really requires not mass production, but mass customization. But we already know that as consumers, we've not seen anything that lets us do that. So the temporary solution is just having some small inventory and then do pre-orders and having some sales to ask people order things first before we make them. So sustainability has been a key word in fashion industry for many years. This is 2018 State of Fashion. Every year we have these nice reports from Business of Fashion. So we already see things like getting personal and sustainability. That's 2008. 2009, same thing. We have to do it now and never. And we have to end ownership. We have to self-disrupt. We have to make on-demand production. 2020, and there's still sustainability. And fashion material should have some effect, having the environmental friendly materials still along the line of environmental protection, but we're still talking. Now COVID hits. Before that is sales minus profit is some cost, which includes waste. But to a lot of brands, profit margin still looks good. Then why we would rather produce more than losing the profit? And then COVID comes, it stopped many businesses. We've seen pollution has reduced, and brands, a lot of businesses are losing money. Then is like a warning sign saying, let's really rethink, let's pursue something better. But oftentimes it's driven by the loss of profit. So they think they need to innovate, they need to change the way they run things. Some of the manufacturing move on to producing PPEs, which is great. And that also shows that they're making things that's really needed and they're not making things that's not needed. But then very quickly, a lot of places want to reopen. Let's save the economy. Then I'm not very positive that after COVID, after this rethinking, we may just go back to where we were before. And if profit means everything, then environment doesn't mean anything. So I'm not very positive that after this pandemic that we will move on to something that's environmentally friendly and solve some of the pain points in the fashion industry. This has been going on and on for decades, where creative designers are making very interesting designs, including all those wearable stuff that's very useful and creative, loved by makers, but they rely on manufacturers to take the risk and produce them for them, because the designers all doing things all by themselves would not be able to meet the demand if they have the demand. But manufacturers will not try anything new and risky until they make sure that there's a market. However, mass population, they don't even know what they want until they see what's already in the market. So there's this negative cycle that's going round and round and round for decades. That's why we don't see people wearing functional clothing. That's why even making things that fit us is so hard. That also means fashion design lacks tools. As a maker, it really got me into this rabbit hole that why is it so difficult to hack the fashion? Well, I think it's easy to hack, but why is it that they are not self-disrupting and hacking? So I then started my own fashion brand that's doing something completely differently from the get-go. So my brand is called Art by Physicist, where I produce these interesting creative designs that's based on my painting, and they're categorized as nature, future, and science. In terms of ready-to-wears, things like what I showed earlier that has paintings of constellations and interesting nature-inspired paintings or printing on them digitally. They're all made on demand. So the fabrics are not printed until I place an order, and that could be at any volume. The designs also has a series that encourage makers to do hands-on. So not only can you find ready-to-wear, you can also find DIY patterns that are directly printed onto fabrics, onto the paintings. Because why not? If I can already print paintings onto the fabric, there's nothing stopping me from printing patterns. And that will reduce a lot of the manual back and forth when you're trying to convert the paper onto fabric and back. In this case, you can just do everything in one go. So my brand is trying to not only producing ready-to-wear that are very special, but also give makers and crafty people an opportunity to do the DIY construction. So kind of inspired by the open source hardware where you show the instruction and you make the hardware available as components. And also there are tutorials, things like what I showed earlier, having electronics embedded them, that's not even possible by fashion manufacturers. So manufacturers can make very beautiful clothes, very high quality, but they don't know at all how to embed electronics. That's where the tutorials come in, things like using machine learning and detecting your hand gesture and train the constellations on the dress. When you move your hand in the right way, it will call the constellations to show up. And also what I showed earlier, the Saturn design, you can find the instructions on how to make one yourself. This design is that when you swirl around, it will show the ring of Saturn. So these things are trying to encourage a different way of doing fashion. And on-demand production here, using 3D printing, this is a earring of a Schrodinger's cat, like, to play with the quantum superposition. So this is all done by 3D printing. And as long as you can draw things and make models, you can submit the model to any services or have your own printer to print the product out. So basically you don't make anything until someone orders it, then you can do a production of any volume. You just need to pay for the materials and shipping. So a methodology like 3D printing is really all we need in fashion, is that as long as you can draw a model, you can upload it to a service and get it manufactured with a standard method so that your size is what you expect. And also no minimum order. You can produce at any volume for the material cost. Coming from the electronics background, this is really like using how we make electronics, applying that to fashion. It has very similar steps, like starting with 2D design, and you define how you lay out your materials, you send it to a fab. In terms of electronics, you can efficiently produce wafers with chips, structures, and make PCBs and packaging, all in a design-driven way. For fashion, we also start with 2D patterns, but then what the industry does is having these technical pattern makers trying to make the first fit sample, but the fit is always wrong. The second time, the fabric will be wrong. And there are a lot of details and notions missing. That is just a lot of back and forth and mistakes. Eventually you get to production. A lot of the clothes made are just very boring, like this one shown on the right here. So what we really need is something that allows a complete ecosystem that lets designers or consumers who can input their own creativity into the production method. So this is a large scale project that I've been building is a platform that allows people to submit their designs, and everything is captured into the pattern, including the fit and the look. Oftentimes, we've seen some startups having built solutions to get fit prediction, which is very useful and good, but the industry is still at the stage of just making t-shirts and jeans for the fit. But we know that people who also want to wear things, special things that are different in terms of look, we have to satisfy both the fit and look in order to really make the customization en masse possible. So that requires a lot of the latest technologies that we already have at high-tech companies, but they're not necessarily applied to fashion as this whole ecosystem yet. For designers and consumers, they really should be able to input what kind of design that they want to be produced. We need things that can allow people to input and also do virtual try-on. We already have things like computer vision to detect clothing items and trying to recommend what type of clothing that's similar. But how about taking a step further to say, we can even find out what kind of pattern is needed to make this clothes, and we would adjust the pattern to the person's size when the customer gives us their body measurement. This can all be done with machine learning and computer vision, but we don't have anything like that yet. In terms of the manufacturing, we really need to have more automation and the democratization of manufacturing. We need to have a lot more microfactories and distributed manufacturing, having designers submitting their designs all over the world and finding the closest manufacturers that's able to produce their design for them. That requires standardization, a consistent way of capturing your design and reproduce them, just like 3D printing. As long as you can design, you can upload models that will be made for you. So that also requires services, not just machines. There are a lot of manufacturers that make really good automated machines, or they can really support local manufacturing if they can offer services instead of just trying to sell machines and delocalize the power. I truly believe that only when we get to that point, when we are able to really capture the design digitally, having supply chain supporting creative designs, then we will be able to add those hardware creativity into this manufacturing process. We already have all those open source components where we can use to do prototyping, but we also need machines that's able to do large scale manufacturing to be able to create repeatable products, mostly automatically and in a really mobile fashion that they can have any design submitted and be able to produce them. So hopefully by talking about the environmental impact, the lack of tools in the fashion industry, I convince you that we really need another revolution in fashion industry. And only by then can we then make wearable technology, the hardware part of things, available to make those components, design elements where designers can say, I want a sensor here, I want a output display there, and I want to make the clothes look like this. Then we can really produce those physical products at demand, wanted by people, and then only produce when people already want it. So the words future and imagine are being talked over and over in terms of wearable technology, and everyone is looking for the killer app. I really think that we have to get the software part and the supply chain ready before we can even have those creative ideas mainstream. Because this is Maker Faire, I will not leave the presentation without showing something that I'm making right now. I've been waiting for my supply for a long time, and finally yesterday I got the first batch of electronics. But this time of waiting also allowed me to do more digital design. Like I mentioned earlier, really digitizing our design process can really help us do on-demand production. So I've been making this masks that's based on my face. Is got this decorative components, and I had a scan of my face and made a really, really rough model of my face. It's not very good because I don't have the hardware to take an accurate 3D scan of my face. I just use my phone, and there's an app they use some machine learning model to generate the face. But I got this rough model, which I can map onto this digital SVG design, and then put it on the right place, then carve it out into a mask shape. This is a paper mock-up that I did just to make sure that the size is correct, and then I can do more adjustments digitally. But don't worry, it's not gonna just be a decorative piece. It's gonna have the electronics embedded and sensors, so it will be both decorative and useful. So I'll make this open source and show people how this is done too. But it also got me thinking that I'm just doing this for my own face, but everyone's face is very different. It's same as the body. If we don't have solution to let people scan their body or using algorithms to construct bodies and fit the prototypes to them, maybe we can start with masks because everyone's face is different. But there comes the question that how, if I want to make this for somebody else, how are they going to submit their face models? And maybe people don't want to do that. Perhaps this kind of rough model would work. That's what I wanted to show is, at the end, I think the problem with all the existing pain points in our industry is really the silos that we have created between different fields. Science is very important for art. It can create tools that help the arts be more efficient and be more environmentally friendly. And art is also very important for science, for engineering fields, where we can have all these beautiful ideas that come out if we look for the artistic beauty in nature. And also art is how we create culture and influence people and generate happiness. This is what I want to show. And how can you also help and contribute? My fashion brand donates the sales to STEAM and environmental protection. So if there's anything you like, please would really appreciate your support and also spread the word. And I'm also very open to collaborations, so feel free to reach out. Thank you.